Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it repeats on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and all these are subject to change. You can also listen to this show on our Podomatic page. That's our flagship podcast station, as well as iHeart, Amazon, Spotify, and about a half a dozen others. It's brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. And this year's camp is less than 2 months away, and we're about 3/4 of the way filled, and we're expecting to sell out very quickly. And we just got a call from a lady in Sweden. She's from Massachusetts originally, but she's teaching over there. And she recently watched the Tucker Carlson interview with Willie Soon, even though it was originally aired in January. And she says, I want to be around like-minded people. So we got a family from Frankfurt, Germany that heard about the camp. And I'm not sure if it was either this show, probably the Willie Soon interviews, because that got millions and millions of views. But we're excited. We're excited about it, and we expect a full house. But if you're interested to learn more about the camp program, visit our website, campconstitution.net. We also have a weekend retreat coming up for families, unaccompanied adults, and unaccompanied children. That would be the last weekend in September, Friday to Sunday, Friday dinner time to Sunday, right after lunch, and Camp Sentinel in beautiful Tuftonboro, New Hampshire. And that's just a few towns away from me. It's sort of nice when a camp can be pretty close to us. The Singing Hills camp's about an hour and a half. It's a nice ride, and an hour and a half isn't too far away. But we have families that are driving up from Texas, Wisconsin, Florida. So I can't complain. We also have a ladies' retreat coming up in the first weekend in November. And this one's going to focus on gardening and homesteading. And that's going to be taking place at the Alton Bay Christian Conference Center, where we held our ladies' spring retreat. So for more information, just please visit our website, campconstitution.net. In last week's show, I was asking this just for those who listen to the show on WBCQ. We'd like to get some feedback from you, as we have to make a decision. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a financial reversal. Not going to put us out of business, but we have to be a little closer to certain things we may have to cut out unless we're able to overcome or get some funding unexpectedly. And God has blessed us in so many ways. It's just hard to imagine. But one of our longtime donors passed away, and it was this person was a substantial donor. And so there's going to be it won't put us out, but it's going to definitely put a little dent in some of the things we do, unless the Lord provides. And we hate to cut back anything, but we need to know we need to get some feedback from the listeners here and see if it's worth staying on. We'll still do our podcast, probably even do it a little more frequently than 1/2 hour a week. But we can still have our voice. We'll still get out there. But we just love this station. We've been doing this show, I think, since 16. I think it was early 16, and that's almost 9 years. So we'd hate to cut it back, but we want to get feedback. So please go to our website, go to the contact, and say, yes, I listened to your show. This is where I'm from, and what have you. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, now a sponsor is either a business or a like-minded nonprofit, where for a donation of $100 a year minimum, you can do more, we will list your company or your nonprofit. We would have a link with a little write-up and a JPEG to people see what you folks do. And we do encourage you to visit our sponsors page. We have some people who do sponsor us, but they don't want to. They either don't have a business, they make donations, or they don't necessarily want the business or their nonprofit up anywhere. They just do it, like the Bible says, the left hand shouldn't know when giving alms or charity, the left hand shouldn't know what the right hand's doing. That's their philosophy. But I know some people, obviously, it's good to. We want to support like-minded businesses, and that's why we like to have, and also nonprofit groups. No, it doesn't have to be a certified 501(c)(3). It could be a local patriotic group that doesn't necessarily have any kind of official status at the state or local or federal level. Patriots, such and such county patriots that might meet somewhere on a regular basis. So anyway, just go to our website again, campconstitution.net, and click in where it says contact. Now, I recently wrote an article, or I sent it out as an email blast, as well as an article on our website, on our camp blog. It's concerning the Lasker Foundation. And what prompted me to do this, now in my book that I published a few months ago, The Racist Roots of Planned Parenthood and Its Legacy of Death, I pointed out the funder of what is known as the Negro Project. The Negro Project was launched by Margaret Sanger and her birth control. First, it was her birth control, what was it called? Birth Control Federation. Then they changed it to Planned Parenthood Federation of America. But her goal was to get members of the Black clergy, Black doctors, and other Black officials, leaders, to promote birth control. This would be medical birth control. There was back in the 1920s and 30s. They didn't have the so-called pill, but they had other means of doing that. They also had sterilization too, and that's something that the organization Planned Parenthood was supporting, or at least many of its prominent people were supporting forced sterilization. But the Negro Project was launched in Black communities in the South, and they thought there were too many Black people, too many Negroes, and of course they mask it up as well. This is their best interest. They have big families. They can't take care of them. Like the song by Elvis Presley in the Ghetto, another mouth to feed instead of another soul, another person that will become a believer or invent something or become a positive impact. They decided there were too many Blacks. They also do their own birth control. I think that was what motivated Margaret Sanger initially. She was basically a sex pervert. And sometimes these folks get pregnant. These females get pregnant. Yes, only females get pregnant. And they thought, well, we want to be able to live our lifestyle without having to deal with the consequences. Abortion's a little nasty. So if we can do something to instead of having a pregnancy, getting an abortion to prevent the abortion. So they were very successful in launching this project, and it lasted for about 1938 to 1942. And if you do a search on Wikipedia, make it look like it was no big deal. When it was phased out. Well, when you do a pilot project, of course you phase it out, and then it's introduced to the whole country at large. That's just how these things work. But they don't want to tell you who funded it. And it was funded by a man named Albert Lasker. Now, I brought this out in my book. And how I learned about this is that I went to the library, Harvard Medical School library, where Clarence Gamble's papers are housed, and I got the correspondence between Sanger and Gamble from 1938 or 39 to the early 50s. I didn't publish every letter, but I thought the more pertinent letters are in the book as well as in some of the articles. So Lasker was the one that kept on referring to, and I thought, who's this guy Lasker? Come to find out, he was one of the leaders of the modern advertisement world. He's the one that made Lucky Strikes popular, also made women smoking popular. And then, of course, he changed direction some years later when it came to smoking, not when it came to his racist roots. He never repented, as far as we know, and said, "Gee, I was wrong. Forgive me." And his wife, Mary. Now, Mary, and by the way, Lasker was a Republican. And he actually supported Harding, and I probably would have supported Harding too if I were around back then. That doesn't let him off the hook, by the way, because Sanger was a real genius, an evil genius. She had people from all backgrounds. She had Nazis, she had Klansmen, she had communists, she had Black communists and Black radicals all working for her or doing her bidding. So it was kind of interesting. She got people on all the extreme so-called spectrum to do her bidding and do her work, and they were doing it willfully. She established, I think, in 1932, a National Negro Advisory Council, which included guys like W.E.B. Du Bois, who was really an elitist who hated his own people, those that didn't quite measure up to the IQ. And the IQ, by the way, was initially designed by white supremacists to prove certain races inferior, and then it became popularized. Today, we don't necessarily consider it the background. It's a racist background. Um, the Lasker, Mary Lasker, she was the wife of Albert Lasker. She originally was married to a New York art dealer, I guess quite a wealthy guy, Reinhardt, Reinhardt. I think we spelled it. We used the spelling in the letter that she sent. That was one of her letters, but she was not just like a footnote. She ran. Actually, she was the head of the birth control league, Sanger's baby. She was the head of it, which it changed its name to Planned Parenthood Federation of America, I think, in the early 40s and certainly by 45 to 47. And so she wasn't just, like I say, she was a key component of Sanger's world. She was a close associate of Sanger. And she ended up divorcing Reinhardt, married Lasker, keep the money in the so-called ideological family, which the left does a great job of doing. And she was 20 years younger than old Albert. And Albert, they founded after World War II, they founded something called the Lasker Foundation. Now, I never heard of the Lasker Foundation, and I was interviewed by Dr. Duke Pesta of the Freedom Project Education. And Willie Soon, Professor Willie Soon, my good friend, one of our instructors, listened to it. And he not only did he know about the Lasker Foundation, he said basically most of the people who get awards from the Lasker Foundation go on to get Nobel Peace Prize. It's sort of like the AAA of the Nobel Peace Prize team. And he was surprised to learn this. So what I did was when I found out of this Lasker Foundation, I went to their website, and this is what you'll find if you go to info. So go to the website, laskerfoundation.org, and click on About Us. And this is what you're going to will say. Our mission to improve health by accelerating support for medical research through recognition of research excellence, advocacy, and education. Okay. It sounds okay, but what kind of research? Who's funding it? Yeah, the federal governments and state governments are funding it. Therefore, a lot of it's predetermined. But what we do, we celebrate the contributions of scientists, clinicians, and public servants who have made major advances in the understanding, diagnosis, treatment, cure, or prevention of human disease. Oh, the cure is a bad word, by the way. The medical establishment hates to see that, especially if you use the word cure for cancer. Oh, that's a big no-no. You go to jail for that. To continue, our programs educate the public and promote scientific collaboration, and we advocate for a healthier world through medical research. The legacy of Albert and Mary Lasker. So here is they're praising their founders. Mary Woodward Lasker, 1901 to 1994, was a champion of medical research. She and her husband pioneered the advertising executive Albert Davis Lasker, 1880 to 1952, established a legacy of advocacy and philanthropy in support of science and health. Mary Lasker was one of the country's best known and most effective activists in the cause of increased public funding for medical research. Let me stop right there. That is not a good thing, because when the government does the research, it wants its perspective accelerated or promoted, or else you don't get the money. I'll give you an example. Dr. Michael Kaufman, my late friend, who was a environmental scientist, he was part of the Acid Rain Participation Project in the early 80s under Reagan. And their finding was that acid rain isn't the problem they thought it was, that many of these lakes are reverting back to their natural acidic levels because trees aren't, there aren't as many forest fires. Forest fires burn trees, the trees' ashes go into the lake, and the acid level goes down. So they said even with lakes at high levels, that might be not good for its ecosystem. There's ways very inexpensively to solve the problem, but that's not what they wanted. So they said this. So it's not true science when it's being funded by the federal government. Now, there might be some cases where they do legitimate things, but again, it's unconstitutional. Nothing in there, it's nothing in the Constitution says federal government's supposed to be funding medical research. So let me continue. For decades, she tirelessly persuaded, I'm sorry, the American public that the national investment in medical research would yield invaluable benefits for human health. Her simple warning was, if you think research is expensive, try disease. Oh, yes. We've heard that. It's interesting. I didn't know that she's the one that actually coined the term, right? Mrs. Lasker's early efforts focused on developing public support to advance research on cancer. Yeah, except for cancer, except for things like Laetrile, and other non-chemical, anything cut, burn, and poison. That's what they do. Anything that comes around that, that's kicked out. That's not wanted. They don't research a dime for that. In fact, they prosecute people who advocate things like B17, Laetrile, and other ways to treat and perhaps cure cancer. Um, so she founded the Citizens Committee for the Conquest of Cancer and took her cause to Congress and the American public as a leading proponent of the National Cancer Act, which was signed by President Nixon in 1971. Her ardent advocacy for greater government funding of all medical sciences contributed to increased appropriations for the National Institute of Health. Oh, yeah. How's that working for us, right? As well as the creation of several NIH institutes, no doubt. Mary Lasker's work transformed the medical research enterprise, which earned her the Presidential Medal, Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal. As a permanent monument to her efforts, in 1984, Congress named the Mary Woodward Lasker Center for Health Research and Education at the National Institute of Health. Yes, we got to get that changed, don't we? Now, this is my article, but what I wrote. But what you won't find on the website is the fact that Albert Lasker was the main financial backer of the infamous and racist Negro Project. He donated at least $20,000, worth today about $500,000. The Negro Project was the brainchild of Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood. The goal of the Negro Project was to promote birth control among blacks. The project set up birth control clinics in the South. Here is a transcribed letter from Sanger to Clem. I won't read the letter. And then his Sanger saying, we do not want word to go out that we wish to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if ever occurs to any of the more rebellious members. And in her book, The Pivotal Civilization, she advocated for the elimination of human weeds and for the sterilization of genetically inferior races. Mary Lasker she presented Lyndon Baines Johnson with the Lasker Award in 1966. And of course, Johnson was the right person to get it because he also got the Margaret Sanger Award that same year, along with Martin Luther King, which I brought out in my book, The Racist Roots of Planned Parenthood, which you can get on our website, campconstitution.net. Just check. Oh, it says shop, 15 whole dollars will get you that. So I reached out to the Lasker Foundation prior to the book's publication to see if they would have a memo or an article or something about the racist roots of their founders, and they haven't. They never got back to me. So I actually just forwarded them a copy of this article and email that I sent out, and I don't think it'll make a difference. But I know Planned Parenthood's Margaret Sanger, she's a little controversial. They took a statue of hers down that was in the Old South Meeting House church in Boston. She actually was there, but it was a forum that she was speaking at. I guess they put her mouth was gagged, and they had a statue of her. I guess she actually did show up at that place back in 1920 or so. And some pro-life activists got wind of it and had a little campaign, and they told me they put it in storage. They also renamed one of her abortion mills. They just had her name on it. They took it off. No, it doesn't change the mission, but at least they acknowledge. Pathfinder International, which normally was called the Pathfinder Fund, that was Clarence Gamble. He was an associate of Sanger, a eugenicist, a racist, white supremacist, grandson of the Procter and Gamble founder, and he lived in Milton. He's the one that had this correspondence, and his Pathfinder Fund was sort of a parallel organization to International Planned Parenthood. They were killing brown and black And brown and black babies in India and China and other, I guess they consider them defective weeds or subhumans or something. And so they still do the work of the founder, but they acknowledge his racist roots. They're coming to grips with it. They won't say, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this stuff. Maybe our founder was what motivated him was evil." No, that's too. So their mailing address. I'm going to give out their mailing address and encourage people to reach out to them. Be very polite. Don't call them names. I was maybe most of these people have no idea of the racist roots and may be as appalled and disgusted about it as we are. And some of them, well, see, I got a job, I better not. But so it's never good to be to be obnoxious about it. It's not we have to take the moral high ground. So their mailing address is 405 Lexington Avenue, 32nd floor, New York, New York 10174. Let me repeat that. It's 405 Lexington Avenue, 32nd floor, New York, New York 10174. Their email is very simple, info@laskerfoundation.org. And it's all lowercase, Lasker is how you spell Lasker. Their phone number, 212-286-0222. Again, 212-286-0222. And just say, hey, you just recently learned about this organization that the founders were racist. And by the way, you can do your own research. You don't have to take my word for it. You can download a free copy of my book on our website, campconstitution.net. You can see the letters yourself. You can also do the research. You can just put in who funded the Negro Project. It's if you go to Wikipedia's Lasker, there's no mention of Lasker funding the Negro Project. But if you go to the Negro Project, you will find information about that. They don't like to talk about too much. And by the way, there was also a Puerto Rican project, something that not one of my pro-life activist friends ever heard of until I asked them about it. And I never heard of it until I saw the letters from Gamble, not just Gamble and Sanger, but Dr. Rock, John Rock, a so-called Catholic from Brookline, Massachusetts. He was one of the pioneers in the pill. And when his own patients weren't adequate for experimentation, and the patients at the McLean uh, mental hospital, they went to Puerto Rico because women there was a lot of poverty in certain places in Puerto Rico. They had very lax, it's a territory of the United States, but they didn't have any laws against it in the territory. So they set up shop there in the mid to late 50s and use about 1,500 Puerto Rican women as guinea pigs. And the result of that became the pill. I forget which drug company. Big Pharma, boy, I tell you what, they really get themselves, the government covers up for them almost every time. Even when they're sued, it's like a drop in the bucket. Uh, and so that's I might do a show dedicated to that and maybe put some pressure on the drug companies. To my knowledge, my research, and I read some things that were from left wing sources that said, yeah, none of these, and some of these women died. There weren't many that died, but one would be too many. May have been a handful, but again, these are human beings. These aren't guinea pigs. These aren't laboratory rats or mice. These are human beings, souls created in God's image that we used by these big drug companies because they were available to be used, and none of their families were compensated, or survivors, or those that were harmed, blood clots and other health issues. Oh boy, that letter I got from Gamble, Gamble sent to his the ladies that were right in the place itself doing the experiments, dear collaborators, like he was giddy. Oh yeah, we're going to get this thing marked. This was a big deal. They made billions of this too, and they use it. The basis of this was the misery of these poor women in Puerto Rico. And these people are supposed to be, these elitists are supposed to be colorblind and race have no racial prejudice. Oh yes, they do, folks, very much so. So anyway, again, let me just encourage you. If you go to our website, you'll see the blog. Uh, I named it. How do I name it? Why does the Lasker Foundation refuse to acknowledge its founder's racist roots? And you can copy and paste that. And if you give us your email, I can send you an email copy of the article. I think I found a little, I think I used, as I'm reading it, I think I meant to put an S somewhere, a little typo, but anyway, it's not the end of the world. So again, the Lasker Foundation, again, do your own research. You don't have to take it from me. And maybe we can also get the National Institute for Health, get Mary Lasker's name up that too. Now you might say, what's the point? Well, we are in a culture war. And I'll give you an example. I want to bring it up with the few minutes we have left. A kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, Harrison Butker, I think his name is. I've lost interest in professional sports ever since they started pushing the homosexual agenda amongst its children fans. Also, during the George Floyd riots, that's when it really said, okay, all of them backed the Marxist, communist, Black Lives Matter, turned their backs on the country, turned their backs on the police, turned their backs on the military, et cetera, et cetera. So I lost all interest in that. But there are some things that are inescapable. So this kicker is giving a commencement address at a Catholic college, a conservative Catholic college. There are a few left, and not all have been taken over by the left. And it was a 20-minute speech, and he made references to the wonders of motherhood. He criticized the support of the homosexual agenda, which he should. Any conservative person, Catholic, Protestant, Jew, whatever, even an atheist, you got to speak out against it. And he didn't do it in a mean-spirited way. But you understand, any criticism of the left is evil in their eyes. They don't tolerate it. You talk about a closed ideological shop. You talk about their ideology. They'll criticize. They'll tell people a doctrinaire. If you're a Christian, you hold to certain values that are biblical. Oh, you're a doctrinaire. Oh, but they're the most doctrinaire people out there. Anything that deviates from whatever their agenda is, and that could change tomorrow. Back in the 30s, you had to hate Hitler, but as soon as they signed the non-aggression pact, you had to be pro-Nazi. And then as soon as the Nazis invaded Russia, you had to hate Nazis again. So they can just turn things on a dime, folks. But the NFL went after this young man. They have many of their players get arrested for wife beating and for felony charges and all kind. The National Felons League. They don't criticize these things. Oh, but say something that goes against the cultural Marxist, and they will come after you. But right now, lots of people are buying his shirts and souvenirs, and I think it's great. Stand up for what you believe in. Let them get ticked off. Let them come after you. Right? Bring it on. Because if we stay silent, they win. And another thing too, we shouldn't use their language. We hear so many people say gay. Well, it's not gay. It's sodomy. That's what the Bible calls it. Doesn't mean we have to be mean spirited about it, but stop using their language. Stop saying migrant. Say, unless they are true migrants, say illegal alien. Okay? They're not refugees. They are here illegally. That makes them illegal aliens. An alien is a person from another country. It's a neutral term. You're either here legally or you're here illegally. And if you're illegally, you're an illegal alien. You're not a migrant. Okay. Use the term undocumented worker. No, you're an illegal alien. So we need to stop using their terms, because when we use their terms, they win. We gay. Gay is an adjective. Well, there are some people who have names. The first name is gay, but it's mainly an adjective. It basically means happy, carefree. The children are playing gayfully in the backyard. Can't use that word anymore when it comes to that. It has to do with sodomy, just like the rainbow. Rainbow was God's covenant. It's had nothing to do with sodomy. Celebrating a raid on a seedy, filthy homosexual bar in Lower Manhattan. That's what they celebrate June for, by the way. The cops they were going after a homosexual prostitute, and homosexuals attacked the cops. That was the Stonewall riots. That's their celebration. That's what they celebrate June for, by the way. So anyway, we are running out of time. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to Camp Constitution Radio with your host Hal Shurtleff. And until next week, may God richly bless you.